Marcus, here's a question.
Sure.
Why is building pressurization overlooked in design and commissioning? Why is that? It's just like no one seems to care about it till there's mold growing on the wall.
Well, so a lot of people sometimes treat commercial buildings like residential buildings. Like, so if it, for instance, like at your house, like, in the States, you'll have like an undercut in a door. You'll have an RTU in the hallway. You'll see your T-stat, right? And your doors open up. They don't realize that there is no outside air requirement in residential, okay?
Yeah.
So basically a building is designed or, assumed to be a little leaky. Like, so when you open the door or you open this, or you have a can light, it goes here. Like, so people don't realize that, RTUs, when you close the door, they're supposed to be open, believe it or not. They're not designed to be closed. So you go into a commercial building, okay? So sometimes they're like, remember, if it's a passive or if it's this, or if it's like, be very careful when you think of passive at a commercial building, because at 1 minute you're pressurizing the building, because remember, a building's a little higher than a house sometimes, unless like, you're a McMansion. So you have pressure, hits it, right? You have outside air. Outside air, wind, has dirt and pollutants and other bad stuff. That's why they call filters, right? So if you basically take out that pressure from the inside, usually 0.05 positive, to keep out that junk, right? And you go, it just, it's going to try to come in. So mold needs moisture and basically food. Well, food is skin. Food can be basically gypsum, paper. Okay, so once it comes in, it starts yum, 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 right? So you can actually have a lot of problems everywhere. So I don't know how many buildings I've gone into. And I'm like, first thing I do is, I take like if I have a receipt, right, and I open a door and you're like, you can feel inside, it's pulling in. You can tell if it's outside, pulling out. You can you can take the receipt, you could put it to a duct, you can see what it is. A lot of building operators, you'll come in and you're like, oh, I have humidity problems. I have this, I have that. So let me guess, you shut down your outside air dampers. Well, how do you know? I'm like, it's okay. Everybody thinks you shut down the outside air because it's humid outside. You're going to stop it. Well, that's basically like saying you just stopped yourself from breathing. And the building's like, what do I do? So it just starts sucking from anywhere. As soon as you start sucking in outside air, you're actually pulling more outside air in, and when you try to shut it off, more humidity, more heat, more bad causing elements. And the one thing that people don't realize is that indoor air quality is actually worse than outdoor air quality, because we're all in the room
Correct.
breathing.
Yeah. So yeah, from a design point of view, if you're a designer, and people don't talk about this very much, you're trying to resolve in an equation the IEQ metrics against keeping energy as low as possible, right? And they are sort of diametrically opposed in a way, unless you've got a DIAS system. So yeah, it just boggles my mind that no one talks about building pressurization. It's going to test this system, going to test that system, and no one checks it, and no one monitors it. FM people don't monitor it. I mean, when I go to Dubai a lot, you're sitting in the lobby and I look up and I see the grills are dripping because it's very humid there, right? That tells me that lobby is negatively pressurized. And I know what's happened. Probably when that building was handed over, it's probably positively pressurized. And over time, the filters aren't getting changed, and slowly the building goes negative as the filters block up, and boom, there you go. So the other thing is that the technology completely exists to deal with this, right?
Yep.
Monitoring the pressure between certain points in the building and outside, a VFD to make sure things stay right.
But now you're looking at a Band-Aid, right? The one thing you didn't look at is basically the envelope. The envelope, how tight it is, how isn't it tight it is. And so basically ASTM tests, the AAMA test, basically envelope consultant, envelope commissioning, hugely important. Actually, more important than anything is the envelope. 85% of all claims come from water leakage right? If air leaking, water's leaking. So once again, building pressure, you can always solve a problem at the end when you're like, turn up the dial and make the fan higher. Now you're wasting more money. You're pushing more air out than you needed to, because you now have holes in the wall. Remember, people don't realize this. Okay, so if you have like nail holes, or you basically have screw holes, or if you have like insulation that has all on a 10, everybody's got to look on this on basically a 10,000 square foot building. Look on how many little penetrations you could have. You could have 20,000, 30,000, 50,000, right? Add all those little suckers up, right? And guess what? You probably have a 6 to 10 foot hole in your wall that nobody looks at. And they're like, I didn't think about that. So how do you actually pressurize a building with a 6 to 10 foot hole in your wall? You don't.
All right. Yeah, agreed. Absolutely. I think, facade is a building system of systems, and facade is the most important system, right? And now it's starting, thankfully, again, due to the green building movement, that attention is being paid to it. Does it leak? How much does it leak? How do we make it better? That is
air, water, vapor,
yeah.
thermal. Air, water, vapor, thermal. Basically, the perfect floor. This is basically from Joe. Perfect floor, the perfect wall, the perfect roof. All they are you just really have to think about it. I mean, honestly, it's not rocket science. You just have to think about how you overlap it, how you stop it. And when you do a mock-up, don't just do a mock-up because you want to make it look good. So the 199% rule is basically 99% of all problems is caused by 1% of the little interfaces in between everything.
Yes. I agree. So we started on pressurization here, but what we should finish up on here is that the facade matters, and building envelope commissioning probably has a pretty busy future if you're in that game.
Huge. It's actually, it's growing like architecture, building science, architects and engineers. Okay, they're no longer like on the other side. You have to work together to make sure that that boundary called the envelope, the enclosure, the wall, the boundary from the outside to the inside, everybody has got to get on the same page to understand what that really means, not only aesthetically, but basically technically. I mean, sure, because I remember the envelope and glass facade. I mean, that is the beauty of it, but it also has to work.
Correct. That's a good point to leave that one. Thank you.